Hello, friends, family, and patrons. In the ongoing series of update videos where I can't seem to figure out how to open it, indulge me in a brief diversion. In the year 1985, we were graced with the movie Real Genius, starring, of all people, Val Kilmer in one of his earliest roles. If you haven't seen it, put it on your to do list. It's amazing. Part of the story revolves around Val Kilmer trying to build a laser as part of a finals project while graduating college, except it's sabotaged and ends up destroying itself. In the midst of his grief, he ends up having a revelation on how to improve on the design even more. Summed up as such.
These little setbacks are sometimes just what we need to take a giant step forward. Needless to say, I was a little despondent about the meltdown. But then, in the midst of my preparations for Harry Carey, it came to me.
After the last 2 weeks, I can safely say I feel this on a deep personal spiritual level. But at any rate, I've managed to make progress nonetheless. Now, why I felt the need to include all of these diversions back to a classic nerd movie that just happens to speak to me, I don't know. It's sort of a. Well, how would you describe it, Val?
It's yet another in a long series of diversions in an attempt to avoid responsibility.
I am not entirely sure how I feel about this becoming my motto at this point, but at any rate. So here is the update video where I show you what I've managed to accomplish and how certain things did not go according to plan, but I still think I'm going to be able to make it to Dragon Con. In the description I was given by the Page to Stage cosplay contest for Dragon Con, the part of the description was he has a cape that the lining of which looks like the night sky. And then it also states that he has a helmet with horns. So my thought was to try and tie the two together and have the horns look like they're made of the same kind of material that's burst through the helmet. So step one was trying to find a resin combination that would look right so that I could achieve the look I was going for. I tried practicing using a bunch of dice molds that I got offline, and I think I got pretty close, though I did struggle a little bit discovering that glitter tends to settle to the bottom and therefore it didn't look very star-like. Next up was doing the horns. I downloaded some files off of, I believe it was Cult 3D, which is a website full of different 3D printer files that you can download. These ones happen to be free and I think really kind of captured the look I was going for. So I loaded them up into my preferred 3D modeling software to slice and then turn into a file that I could print on the 3D printer. After that, it was as simple as loading them up on the resin printer and waiting, that many hours for the print to finally finish. And you can see how it came along the way. Once I finally was done with the print, I just had to scrape them off the print bed and then cure them in UV light. Some people have curing stations. I'm personally inclined to be lazy and just use the outside light to do the trick because the sun's a great source of UV radiation. So the next step is to take the horns after I've got the 3D printed models finished and then put them in a container that I can then do a liquid rubber pour over so that I can create molds that I can then use to make the resin versions ultimately once I'm done with this process. So here you can see how I constructed the box to try and store everything, along with a few other prints. I'm working on a fun project this summer involving barnacles that I'm making out of EVA foam clay. But then I started the pouring with the liquid rubber, and ran into a problem. It turned out that I did not have enough liquid rubber to fully fill the container. I about got half of it, but that was all I could really manage. Panic setting in at this point. Terror, mind-numbing terror. Because at this point, the liquid rubber has already been mixed. So it's curing as I'm standing there realizing that this plan isn't going to work and I'm going to have to improvise. So, I managed to come up with a quick solution that at least somewhat helped mitigate the problem. I drained the liquid rubber back into the original container and quickly found a container that would suffice for the barnacles that I was working on, but I still needed to figure out how to fix the problem with needing to make a mold of the horn. So what I came up with was I had a plastic sorting tray nearby that was about the right diameters that would work for what I was trying to do. Afterwards, I got out a bunch of Play-Doh that I had laying around, filled the bottom of that with the Play-Doh, to create a half mold like I've done in the past, where half of the mold is filled with Play-Doh, the other half you then pour the liquid rubber over, and that creates a mold. You can then flip it over and repeat the process with another coat of liquid rubber, and then create a 2-part mold. So that's what I basically had to cobble together in a hurry. The results were not necessarily my finest work, but in an emergency like this, it's better than nothing. So, the plan was to then go pick up more liquid rubber to complete the process. However, while I was there, I found a different compound that should work just as well. This is a process where you paint on successive layers of latex to ultimately create a latex mold that you can then use for the process, which I figured would be a lot easier since it's going to require a lot less material to coat both horns. It's just going to require repeating the process about 12 times, so, about a week to finish. It's not the end of the world. While I was letting the liquid latex dry, I decided to start work on finishing the helmet from what I had done. I had added the place where I'm going to put the head crest eventually, and decided to fill in some of the seams that were still remaining with plumbing caulk that I then feathered out with a little bit of water and judicious application of my phalanges. That's fingers in technical speak. This is a trick that I found that helps hide the foam seams in the EVA foam so it looks like one solid piece of metal. It can take a little bit of practice to get good at it, but once you get the hang of it, it'll do wonders for your look and helps it all come together in a way that looks like it's one solid piece rather than dozens of pieces that are all glued together. So after that, I decided to change things up a little bit and try and redo the effect of the horns bursting through the helmet. The 8mm foam I had used for doing the actual helmet body provides a good bit of rigidity, but because it's so thick, it gave the effect something more of a cartoonish look than what I was going for. So I instead decided to make some caps out of some thinner 6mm foam and cut holes in that to achieve the look I was going for, and I think the results are a lot better. I ultimately decided I didn't like the visor I had come up with last time, so I made a slightly more scaled down version instead, which also put me back a little bit, but I think the reduced scale speaks for itself. So now it's back to painting horns and trying to make the molds that I want, and hopefully, I will get something done instead of things constantly going slightly pear-shaped and having to revisit and remake things. It's always a bit of trial and error whenever I'm making a project, and especially with some of this, I'm really pushing myself to do things I've never done before. So, that's where I'm at presently. You can understand why this update video is going up so late, is really I've been juggling so many other things. I just needed a day to breathe, and unfortunately that put my upload schedule back a little further than I meant. I'm going to continue working on this project in the coming 2 weeks. The goal is to, once I've got the liquid latex molds made, cast the horns using a combination of clear resin and various mica compounds to hopefully achieve the Starry Night Sky effect I'm going for. I'm also going to try adding some LEDs so that I can hopefully achieve a twinkling star effect like I've really wanted to do with this project. So, fingers crossed there. I'm also hoping that with any luck, and provided nothing else goes catastrophically wrong, I will hopefully be able to finally start work on the wings this week, since that's going to be a big part of what's holding me back from moving forward. Since it's going to be a large enough costume piece, I really need to have that finished so I can then build everything else around that and ensure that I'm not limiting my mobility and providing more headaches for myself down the line. Simple. It's never as simple as you would like. At any rate, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to go breathe now, and hopefully I will see you all again in 2 weeks with even more progress and something that looks a little bit closer to the finished work. Until then, friends, family, and patrons, thank you all so much for your continued support. I really hope to make this look good, and I cannot wait to show off my work for you in 2 weeks. Until next time, sign-offs are hard. And here again are the thank yous for everyone that has been willing to help support me financially through this project. I would not have gotten this far without you.